So the leading indicators also, I mentioned goals. I want to go over goals very quickly. You can set a goal for any account in the standard chart of accounts. If you hit the Create New button here, for example, you get a drop-down and it shows all of the accounts. And there are two kinds of goals. There is an annual growth goal and a percent of sales goal. In the annual growth goal, that's pretty straightforward in this case, we're saying we'd like to see a 10% growth in revenue for this company starting on January of 2011, and I'll show you where that date comes into play here. So in order to do that, you come in, put in the appropriate goal percent here, make the start date what you want it to, and you can change the start date at any time as well as the goals at any time. And you'll notice here there's some different amounts for percentages for some of these lines of business. What we're saying here is that the overall goal for the company is a 10% increase in revenue, but we know that we can probably get a 15% increase in managed services. That's the direction we're going. Projects maybe only 5 and products only 5 and so on. So you can set these separately from the overall goal. This is not the intended to add up to this amount. These are separate for each line of business. At the beginning, the first time you set the goal, we'll fill in the blanks for you with the same amount. And I encourage you to just use the overall goal when you get started until you start to get a feel for how you can actually see the separate lines of business working for you. In addition to the growth goal, we have a percent of sales goal. If, for example, we've said here revenue is a 10%, we want to see a 10% increase in expenses, an 8% increase. Well, what if the revenue only increases by 5%? You certainly don't want expenses to outpace that. So we have a percent of sales goal that we use in several places, but most importantly in the leading indicators that will keep things in proportion. And I think I see a question.
Yeah, Bob, we had one question here. It said, are the lines of business set within Corelytics, or can I set those?
Good question. The lines of business are set for the industry. We do benchmarks by line of business, and so this model, which has been developed by Service Leadership, has 5 lines of business. Future plans for Corelytics will include customer sets of lines of business. We'll always have a standard set. We need to do that for comparability across companies, but then include additional. But today they're fixed and cannot be changed. The definition of the lines of business is also in the on-screen help. Lines of business for IT service companies: managed services, time and materials, projects, product, and other. And there's some interesting distinctions between those and why they're separated that way. Of course, the first 3 have to do with the fact that there's time involved, there's people time involved, and you have some control over those costs separately than you do, for example, with product sales, which are generally fixed by the supplier of that product. So each one of those has a characteristic that's the gross margin will be, in general, different for each of those because of the characteristics of the type of business. Long and involved answer. It's early in the morning. Sorry about that. Okay. Again, the 2 kinds of goals: growth goal and a percent of sales goal. The percent of sales goal does not need a start date because it's just calculated based on revenue. You'll need to set set goals for revenue, expense, profit, and gross margin for sure. That covers the leading indicators. And then again, anything else that you want to pay attention to, that you want to track carefully, then you can set goals for those.